Hello viewers, today we will discuss the topic, the role of agricultural production in food availability and consumption. Food consumption refers to the amount of food available for human consumption as estimated by the food balance sheet of Food and Agricultural Organization. Food availability. Sufficient quantities of food available on a consistent basis, which is one of the pillars of food security. Role of agricultural production in consumption and availability. Food production is the base for food security. The internationally accepted definition of food security is that given by Food and Agricultural Organization in the Rome Declaration on World Food Security in 1996. Further refined in the FAO State of Food Insecurity in the World 2001. Dr. Swaminathan in 1996 has stressed the need for shifting the concept of nutrition security, which he has defined as physical, economic and social access to balanced diet, clean drinking water, environmental hygiene, primary health care and nutritional literacy. Government of India in 1950 provided data on time trends and interstate differences in food consumption and availability patterns. There has been a decline in the proportion of expenditure on food items in the last 3 decades in both urban and rural areas. The starting point is, however, food production that determines the base of food availability and consumption. As Dr. Swaminathan says, India's population is likely to reach 1.5 billion by 2030. The challenge facing the country is to produce more and more from diminishing per capita arable land and irrigation water resources and expanding biotic stresses. India currently produces about 230 million tons of cereals to meet the needs of the population of 1.15 billion. The current situation in India is that cereal production must double by 2050 to meet the needs of the expected population of 1.8 billion, in addition to meeting the needs of livestock and poultry. A similar concern had been voiced by the National Commission of Farmers in 2006. To double annual food grain production from the present 210 million tons to 420 million tons within the next 10 years, that is by 2015, will call for producing at least 160 million tons of rice from 40 million hectares and 100 million tons of wheat from 25 million hectares. Pulses, oilseeds, maize, millet must contribute another 160 million tons. Additionally, the national goal is to raise the production of fruits and vegetables to over 300 million tons by 2015. Between 1973 and 2004-2005, the share of food in total consumer expenditure has fallen from 73% to 55% in rural areas and from 64 to 42% in urban areas. There is an office called NSSO Expand, which provides data on consumption, expenditure on food and non-food items, average quantity consumption per month, total calorie intake, food security at household level, per capita consumption of protein, calorie and fat per day. Production, availability, consumption. Over 60% of the Indian population continue to depend on agriculture and allied activities for their livelihood. The Economic Survey from 2012 to 2013, agriculture and allied sectors accounted for 14.5% of the gross domestic product (GDP) in 2011 at constant prices of 2004 and 2005. The livestock and fishery sector accounted for 28.4% to the value of output from total agricultural and allied activities in 2010-11, whereas overall GDP has grown by an average of 8.62% during 2004 to 2005 and 2011 to 2012. Current situation of food production. Current situation of food production includes cultivated food crops, poultry, livestock, and fishery production. India occupies first position in production of milk. India ranks first in respect of cattle and buffaloes. It has the second position in the inland fishery throughout the world. It is second in the production of goats. Globally, India is the third largest producer of cereals, with only China and USA ahead of it. We have the third position in the production of fish. The fisheries sector also provides livelihood to some 11 million people involved fully or partially in fisheries on subsidiary activities connected with this sector. We are third in the world in sheep production, seventh in poultry production. 90 million people work livestock sector. The dairy industry provides employment for 18 million people. Diet and intake. The total energy intake is high in industrialized countries. Consumption data from FAO, food balance sheets for the last 40 years, shows an increase in available energy from 2000 kcal per day to 2500 kcal per day. Protein, fat, with the steepest rise in fat intake. NSSO dietary survey over the past 30 days shows that the total intake of energy in rural and urban areas are 2047 kcal and 2020 kcal respectively. But fat intake is much higher, 48 g, both in urban and rural areas. As per the FAO projections, by 2030, there will be a further increase to about 2750 kcal. In developing countries, energy consumption has increased from 2000 kcal to 2500 kcal and may increase during the ages. An estimate suggests that without Green Revolution, about 30 million children would have died in the developing world between 1970 to 2000, with more than two-thirds of these children belonging to Asia. The per capita availability of cereals and pulses consequently witnessed a decline. The per capita consumption of cereals was observed to have declined from a peak of 468 grams per day in 1990-2000 as compared to that in the period 1981 to 1990. The report per capita consumption of cereals in high-income households in rural area was 26.2 kg, about 1 k per day. A survey says that on the dietary intake of cereals, even in the highest income group, it has never exceeded 400 grams per day. A survey conducted shows consumption of less than 70% of RDI for cereals, which has been reduced over the trends. Cereal consumption per person per month has been declined from 13.4 to 12.1 kg by nearly 10% between 1993-1994 and 2003 to 2005 in rural India, and from 10.6 kg to 9.9 kg in urban India, that is about 6.7%. On the other hand, consumption of rice, wheat individually experienced a fall in consumption per capita during the trends. Jowar consumption has dropped by over 40% in both urban and rural areas. In rural areas, consumption of bajra and its products too has fallen from 1993-94 onwards. The absolute fall in the monthly per capita consumption being of the order of 0.1 kg. The per capita world cereal output reportedly declined from 335 kg per year in 1980 to 95 to 310 kg by 2000 to 2005. Among developing countries, China, India, which together accounted for over 30% of the world's cereal output in the early 1990s, contributed significantly to this global decline. The 11 developing countries, China, India, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Iran, Egypt, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, which together contribute 40% of the world's cereal output, accounted for only a 15.6 increase in the cereal output over a period of 13 years, between 1989 to 96 to 2003-2004, a rate of growth of only 1.1% per year, well below the nearly 2% population growth rate of these countries. The developed countries, which together accounted for about 40% of world's cereal output, accounted for only an 18.6% rise in cereal output over the same period, or an annual growth rate of 1.3% ahead of their own population growth. It is insufficient to meet their own rising domestic needs and to provide deficit of the developing world. Economic survey titled Agriculture and Food Management gives a comparative picture of the area, production and yield of crops during 1980-81 to 89-1990, 1919-1991 to 1999-2000 and 2000 to 2001 to 2011 and 12 about rice and wheat. While the compound annual rate of growth CAGR in area was marginal at 0.41 and 0.46% respectively during the 1980s, growth in both production and yield was above 3%. The CAGR of area improved to 0.68% of rice and 1.72% of wheat. But there was a fall both in production and yield in case of rice and yield in case of wheat. The coarse cereals accounted for 15% of the food grain production in 2009-2010. The estimated production of pulses in 2011-12 was 17.09 million tons, indicating a wide gap in demand and supply. There has been a progressive decline in per capita availability of pulses from 69 grams to 39 grams. Punjab-Haryana belt is regarded as the breadbasket of the nation. Punjab farmers supply 60% of the wheat and 40% of rice to the public distribution system and national buffer stocks. The net production of rice and wheat increased in Punjab from 1.2 and 1.1 ton per hectare in 1960-61 to 4.3 to 3.9 respectively in 2004 and 2005. There is a vast scope of increasing rice production in West Bengal, Assam, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and even Kerala during Rabi season. The yield of Boro rice is high in Assam and West Bengal. Over 27 high-yielding rice hybrids are now available to suit different agroclimate and growth conditions as well as grain requirements. Milk and milk products. Approximately 150 million households around the globe are engaged in milk production. India stands first in the production of milk. More than 6 billion people worldwide consume milk and milk products, and most of these people live in developing countries. Since the early 1960s, per capita milk consumption in developing countries has increased almost twofold. However, the consumption of milk has grown more slowly than that of other livestock products. Meat consumption has more than tripled and egg consumption to fivefold. The milk consumption in Australia, Europe, North America, Pakistan is very high. It is low in India, Mexico, New Zealand, Latin America. In South Asia, the consumption of milk and milk products is expected to increase by 125% by 2030. In South Asia, the consumption of milk and milk products is expected to increase by 125% by 2030. Milk provides 3% of dietary energy supply in Asia and Africa, compared with 8 to 9% in Europe and Oceania, 6% to 7%. In Asia and Africa, 6 to 8% dietary protein in Europe. In India, there was no change in per capita consumption of milk and milk products in the last years in rural and urban areas. Rural household milk consumption is 66% to 11% during 93-94, which increased 5 to 85%. Milk availability is 108 ml per day per person, where the required diet is 180 ml per person. Edible oil. Top leading producers of oil are Malaysia and Indonesia. India's per capita consumption of cooking oils is set to increase 1.19% in the current official year 2015. Price sensitive low strata consumes that constitute around 40% of India's edible oil demand are set to consume over 4 lakh tons more of cooking oil this year, resulting in its demand per capita rising to 13.92 to 1.36 kg last year. India's overall consumption of cooking oil to 17.55 million tons this year rises out of 1.mt or 6% from the overall usage of the previous year. Palm oil production is 19.5 to 19.7 mt in Malaysia and around 30.5 mt in Indonesia. Southeast Asia fat intake was 29 g per day in 1967, and the increase over the period was only 16 g per day. In India, per capita consumption of edible oil has risen over the 11 years following 1993-94 by as much as 30% in rural India and 18% in urban India. Contribution to WPI food inflation over past 5 years. Fruits and vegetables 26%, eggs, meat, fish 18%, milk 15%, cereals and pulses 14%, sugar 10%, other products 3%, oil 3%, flour 2%, tea, coffee 2%, other 7%. Meat and poultry. The estimated of more than 7% of the total output is now exported. This is primarily beef. India was the largest beef exporter in the world. Almost all the increase in meat production of 90% is exported. The increase primarily comes from Andhra Pradesh and Punjab. The fastest growing form of meat production in poultry and poultry population saw a CAGR of 10% plus annum in 2006 to 2011. Per capita egg consumption in rural India, about 1 egg per month in 2004 to 2005, has increased by nearly 60% since 1993-1994. The consumption of meat, poultry, fish and products is more in urban India than rural India. The consumption of fish and eggs has increased from the last 10 years. Daily per capita availability is 9 to 10.8 grams. Most countries produce adequate amount of these food production. In some developing countries, this can be increased to 25 grams per day immediately and to 40 grams per day in due course. Meat consumption will be increased as per a survey in South Asia is 11.7 in 2.30 and 5.3 kg per capita per year consumption during 1997 to 1999. Fruits and vegetables. India is the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world, accounting for about 16% global vegetable production and 10% of world fruits production. India's production of fruits and vegetables is 64 MT and 126 MT respectively. India is the front runner in the production of fruits and vegetables, and it is as follows: mango 41%, first rank in the world; banana 23%, fifth rank in the world; cashew 24%, onion 10%, sixth rank in the world; cauliflower 30%, green peas 36%, tomatoes second rank in the world; sapota fourth rank in the world; papaya first rank in the world. India during 2013-14 produced 88.99 million metric tons of fruits and 162.89 MMT tons of vegetables. First rank in production of fruits and vegetables is China. The per capita availability is 26 to 85 grams per day and can be restricted to 50 grams per day with fruits. Consumption of fruits is much higher in urban areas than rural areas. The per capita production of vegetable varies between 50 to 400 grams per day. Since availability of cultivable land is low, the production of vegetables, roots and tubers can be restricted to 200 grams per day. Leafy vegetables are half the quantity since they are rich in carotene, folic acid and minerals mostly consumed. Vegetable is potato, which is high in rural areas and mostly declined during 2004-2005. Consumption of milk and pulses is high in states of Gujarat, Punjab, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, while moderate in Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka and West Bengal, and low in Jammu and Kashmir, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The diets predominantly consist of cereals and millets. Consumption of oil and green leafy vegetables is low. Consumption of fish is more in coastal belt areas like Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Kerala and West Bengal. Meat is highly consumed in Jammu and Kashmir and Maharashtra. Consumption, availability, production in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. The consumption and food habits intake in the two states, namely Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, is almost the same. The analysis revealed that consumption of most food items was less than the requirement in the two states. The diet was based mainly on cereals, which supplied about 74% energy, 67% proteins and 10% of fats. The share of high-value commodities, vegetables, fruits, milk, meat products, in total food expenditure is much higher in Andhra Pradesh than Telangana. The expenditure elasticity for fruits, milk and meat products are equal in both states. About 30 to 45% of the population was undernourished across the states. Incidence of nutritional deficiency is more prevalent among the landless, SC, ST and poor. It appears that nutritional deficiency is mostly observed in Andhra Pradesh. Rice, cotton, sugarcane, mango production, consumption and availability are high in Telangana. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.